Good afternoon, everyone. I think the toughest slot just before lunch, but I assure you I'll try and make it interesting and relevant. And if at any point of time you feel that it's not relevant, you may go back to doing your WhatsApp and emails. Just a quick check in the last row. Am I audible? All right. Thank you so much. So as you can see, my topic is about reimagining collaboration. Okay? And how do you transform teamwork in the age of the agile organization? It's a very nice, simple, succinct kind of a topic, but I'll tell you why it's relevant, and that's what this whole presentation is all about. A little bit about me. I actually manage the collaboration business for Cisco, and I've been with Cisco, like he said, for about over 10 years now, across multiple roles. So, just to set the context, okay, which of these actually represents, like you said, flexibility, mobility, and independence? It's relevant because if I look at my dad, probably the key that was most relevant to him, because for him, mobility and flexibility was about when he got to ride his first Lambretta scooter. For me, it was probably my first plane ride. And for my kids, as somebody said, these are all digital natives. So it's all about mobility and technology. Okay? And as Yudi, I think, said in his previous presentation, we are actually in the fourth industrial revolution, which is actually the digital revolution. And that sets us up really nicely because, out of the various revolutions that have actually transformed mankind, okay, the two most important ones, the industrial and the digital revolution, and obviously the agricultural revolution, but while they have their similarities, they also have pertinent differences also. Right? If you look at the industrial revolution, it was all about individual productivity. It was all about the production line. Okay? Henry Ford, you can have any color that you want as long as it's black. The whole premise was to actually get people to do the same job again and again in the most predictable manner to drive the maximum amount of efficiency. But if you look at the digital revolution, yes, productivity is important, it's given. Operational efficiency is a basic table stake. But what is equally important, or probably even more important, is for the ability to innovate and collaborate. Okay? And what about competition? In that age, competition was very, very well defined. 10 years back, each of us in this room knew exactly what we were doing in the market and who we were competing with. But today, we don't know, because our competition could be around the corner and we may not even know about it. So with that context, let me introduce you to some of the new market leaders, and we know all of these, right? And at some point of time, we would all have interacted and used some of these. Okay? These are the new digital disruptors who have taken existing models and redefined those business models with the help of technology. The world's largest taxi operator does not own a single car. The largest retailers, they do not own a single store. The largest hotel aggregator does not own a hotel room. These are the disruptions that are occurring in the market today with the use of technology as the fulcrum. Okay? And then we all have been through this. Who in this room would have actually been prepared over what's been happening over the last 6 months? Right? The point that I'm trying to make, ladies and gentlemen, is that disruption is actually a way of life. It is the new normal. Okay? And if anyone tries to do an organizational business plan, as an example, a 5-year business plan or a 3-year business plan, it may or may not be relevant because we don't know what's going to happen 6 months down the line. But what we can do as a group, as a community of professionals out here, is to be prepared for the disruption as and when it occurs. How do we put in the right foundational enablers to ensure that we're able to manage the disruption or cope with the disruption as and when it occurs? And we do that, and this is a very important concept, and we do that by moving away from the notion of individual work to that of teamwork. And that's the whole notion of the collaborative enterprise. Okay? Because when people come together, okay, and we all know this, when people come together, that's when ideation happens, innovation happens, and that's really good for the organization. And by the way, this is not a nice to have. This is a must do. Okay? So now, when you start looking at deploying, say for example, a learning application or an IT application for that matter, you don't think about it as in terms of how do I make this individual more productive. It's about how do I make this team, this department, this business unit, this organization more productive. Okay? And that actually brings me to the, the concept of the agile enterprise. Okay? And we know this, we live this day in and day out. Okay? Because work is no longer a physical place. Work could be anywhere. It could be a hotel, it could be an airport. Okay? And rather than having large static teams working on projects which would take months and years, today we're talking about small agile teams that are self-forming to come together on various projects, and very often and more often than not, these are actually cross-functional, cross-geographical, multilingual, cross-cultural, and these teams actually need a collaborative environment in which to operate in. Okay? And that actually brings me to a very, very simplistic definition of collaboration. It is simply teams as opposed to individuals working together as opposed to individually for a common rather than an individual goal.